Brought to you by Heinz. Actually, it's not. But Heinz, if you're out there and you want to sponsor the Lenny Solomon Live Show, you can. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Thanksgiving Day football, not football game, but interview with Mark Schreier. Oh, we're already getting people chiming in as Judy from Clifton, New Jersey has sent us a hello. All right, very good. So, where was I? Yes. So, Mark, Mark is the original bass player from Shlock. I always call us the original six. Was myself on keyboard. Okay, I'm getting a message.
We're getting a little breakup here.
Yes. Are you seeing it?
You're getting chunky.
Mr. Scott,
chunky.
I need a little bit of help.
You're chunkier than usual. It's a different kind of chunky.
You mean to tell me something's wrong
you're getting
with
pixely.
my picture?
From my end, I mean, I look normal to me. My half of the screen is, it's clear, and yours is pixely.
Messages that it looks laggy, and I see myself clear also.
Oh, what about me?
You look great.
No, she already commented. Huh? Let's see. Somebody's commenting already.
Oh, it says video fuzzy on left. Mark clear. Not really.
Not much more.
Not really sure what to do about that.
You're starting to clear up a little bit. This is high
the
tech
weather
stuff.
The weather in Beit Shemesh has been a little bit difficult today. It was good rain, a lot of good rain.
Good for the rain.
Okay, so let's continue and hope that it all works out. That's the only thing to do because I'm not exactly a technician. I'm not exactly a technician.
It's in the hands of the one above. Yeah.
Exactly. So we have with us Mark Schreier, one of the original 6 Shlock Rock members. I was the keyboard player, Gary Wallen on drums, Yona Lloyd on guitar, Danny Block on sax, and Mark Infield was the utility man. He played 5 instruments, played percussion, keyboard, sax, and our bass player was the one and only Mark Schreier. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Where's the Merv Griffin music?
Da, 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 da. That's Johnny Carson. Anyway, so right. let's get into it right away. Let's talk about how you joined Shlock Rock. But before we do that, let's talk about Mark Schreier video.
Okay.
I knew I would throw that.
You're going there.
Okay, right. So we're going to start off with Kew Gardens.
Kew Gardens Bros. Yeah, the Kew Gardens.
Now, Mark went to YCQ just like I went to YCQ, didn't you?
No, I went to Dove Revel.
Oh, you went to the other school.
The other one, yeah.
Very interesting. But there was a video store. 3 blocks from my house on Lefferts Boulevard called Mark Schreier Video. And it was named after you because it was your parents that ran the store.
Right.
And everybody would rent videos from Mark Schreier Video.
Yeah, my dad was ahead of the curve. Yeah.
And this was before I even knew you. I didn't even know you, but there was Mark Schreier Video. Anyway, so Mark, I believe we met through NCSY, which is how the entire band met. But you actually auditioned for Kesher.
Right.
You remember that?
Yeah. Yes, I remember it distinctly. You rejected me. So yeah, it was. You were looking for a guitar player,
right?
And I think this was after Kesher too.
That's right. Maybe. You auditioned as a guitar player,
and
but we didn't. Right, I ended up taking Yona,
which was a much better choice because he's a much better guitar player.
But but in the end, we connected again, and you became the bass player of Shlock Rock.
Right. I remember, so you and I met when I was like 15. I was an NCSYer. I was one of the kids at the Shabbaton. Wow. And you were playing at my first Shabbaton with the Shemesh Orchestra.
Right.
Which was neither the Shemesh nor an orchestra. Discuss. But anyway, so
yes.
I was not much for Jewish dancing. So what I would do is I would sit in front of the band and watch you guys play. And I always enjoyed it. And you had this guitar player. You remember his name?
Zalman Umlas. Zalman Umlas was the head of the band. He was the head of the band.
That's a great name. was a great name for a magician, you know.
and Avi Farnberg was on drums.
Right.
And now, which Shabbaton? So was it in Queens, the Shabbaton, or was it in the Bronx? Do you remember?
Yeah, NCSY is still is, I assume, a great organization for kind of not that religious high school kids, and to kind of get them interested in Judaism and to see what it's like to celebrate a Sabbath together and actually sing songs. But I mean, the main appeal for me was that someone told me there would be girls there.
Right. That's most of the reason that the guys go to the Shabbatons is to meet girls, 100%. Now,
right, so that's why.
So that was my first year in NCSY. I was the band with Avi Farnberg and with Zalman Umlas, and so I didn't know that you were there as a kid. So, but I remember being at a Shabbaton.
My whole image is shattered now.
I remember being at a Shabbaton with you in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. I think I was playing.
And that was you were part of our band. You joined the band in '88. Shlock Rock, 87. It was 87. No, earlier.
Roll it back, baby. No, you got to go to. Okay, here's what happened. All right.
Okay.
I had a band. I had a band that I formed in college when I first joined. A bunch of Hillcrest guys, and it was called Tohu Vabohu.
Yes, I remember.
And Tohu Vabohu is it was created primarily to allow me to play A minor, G, and F for about 10 minutes so that Moshe Kaufman could play the solo to Stairway to Heaven over and over again. That was the purpose of the band. But we did end up recording a demo tape. So we recorded a demo that had 3 songs. We went to a studio in Brooklyn, and somehow you heard it, and Joey Friedman heard it.
Right.
And when Joey Friedman was getting ready to move, and you guys were looking for a bass player, he said, "Hey, I heard this demo. There's a guy playing bass on this demo. I think he'd be good for you." That was the connection.
But you did play with us. You did play with Kesha.
That was Kesha, right?
Right. So that was pre Shlock Rock. Then you went with us and you played a little. I remember playing Shabbatons with you. I remember being in Philadelphia with you at a Shabbaton. And eventually you joined the band. When Shlock Rock puts the band together, when I started getting calls for Shlock Rock, so you were definitely the bass player on our first gigs, which was December 8th and 9th, 87 in Smithtown and Bayonne, the first 2 shows that we ever did as a band. You were the bass player from the beginning. Now,
we were the Beasts from Bayonne. Yeah.
But you know what? Not only that, let's talk about your album playing, because you played on our albums. Learning is Good. You were the bass player on a Barbanel and Learning is Good, New Moon,
yeah.
And the fourth
I did about half.
Old Time Torah Scroll.
Right,
and then you saved the day on Bench. I
played those 3-4 notes on Bench. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were 5. Yes, I remember that. So I actually made a list of the albums that you were on with me in the beginning. You were on Learning is Good. You were on Jewish Pride as the bass player. You actually played bass on Minion Man. You were on Emuna. You were on Songs of the Morning.
That was a great album.
You played bass for KGB. Remember KGB?
Yep. How can I forget?
Nobody in the audience knows what KGB is, but KGB stood for the Kew Gardens Boys, and these were my friends that we all grew up singing, and we put out an album of 6 secular songs called KGB. That was the name of the album, the name of the group. And you were the bass player on that.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, working for the KGB. He was a spy.
He was a spy.
So
he looked you
were on that album. Now, at what point do you? Oh, look, Robbie Bindiger, who knows KGB, just piped in.
I did the Mick Cantarella years. That was.
Listen, Mick Cantarella was one of the greatest engineers we ever worked with. We loved Mick Cantarella. Loved him.
Did.
And that's why he was the first inductee into the Shlock Rock Hall of Fame. Mick Cantarella was the first #1 to go into the Shlock Rock Hall of Fame.
I recorded with Mick Cantarella with my other band, so yeah, we loved him.
That's right. So we're going to talk about your other band in a second because I want to get there. I want to just ask you. Okay, so Kraz in the last episode made fun of my shtick, which was always a old Yiddish man accent, which is what we did. We used to, "No, how are you? All right. What would you like? Chicken soup? A piece of right." You were the expert at. You were the expert at old Yiddish accents.
I had a lot of experience with old Yiddish accents.
How? How come?
I grew up with a bunch of Holocaust survivors. So
right.
So that was my whole growing up.
But you put it on a Barbanel. Hey, what's the parsha? Right?
I don't remember which one was me in it.
Yeah, you. I think you were the guy. Who
me and Eddie Kellen.
Yes,
my buddy Eddie Kellen.
Eddie Kellen, who's also in the Shlock Rock Hall of Fame. There were 50 people in the Shlock Rock Hall of Fame, and we have to start the next class. Nachum Siegel is going to be going in as the first radio personality to make it into the Hall of Fame.
Way overdue.
I know, way overdue. He really plays me so much. And as a matter of fact, I have an audio tape from 1985 where he says, "I just want to know something. Lenny Solomon is going to make it." That's what he said. It was before that I was even okay. But we're not talking about me right now. We're talking about you, Mark Skyer. And what we want to talk about is Kabbalah. Kabbalah, one of my favorite. For those of you out there that don't understand how great Jewish rock and roll can be, I ask you to go to the Kabbalah website. You have a website for Kabbalah, or is it through markskyer.com?
It's on mosheskaya.com, but the truth is you can get Kabbalah through iTunes or Amazon or wherever you normally get music.
One of the greatest rock albums that were that the band, one of the greatest Jewish rock bands that ever came out, Kabbalah, and Mark was the head of it. And it's still not over. You still have the band in Milwaukee, of course. Obviously, different musicians, but or do you perform under Moshe Skyer, the Moshe Skyer band now?
Right. So Kabbalah was, kind of a group of specific people, like the Beatles, and I'm more like now I'm Paul McCartney, so I'm performing under Paul McCartney.
With the Wings.
I'm Paul McCartney, the Paul McCartney band. That's me.
I was going to ask you, as a bass player, who were your musical influences?
Right, as a bass player, I'd have to say my musical influences included Paul McCartney, myself, obviously, and Paul McCartney. So a lot of I like the guy who played with Squeeze. I know you're a big Squeeze fan, so John Bentley. I learned like pretty much everything off of RG Bargy and East Side Story and Sweets from a Stranger. I can play all that stuff. And I like the guy from Elvis Costello. His name is Bruce Thomas. He's a phenomenal bass player. Elvis Costello hates him, which makes me like him even more.
Why? Because is Elvis Costello annoying?
Because he's an anti-Semite. So.
I didn't know that. I don't really know much. Yeah. All I know
is a BDS guy.
I know a couple of songs from Elvis Costello. Squeeze, though, was my favorite band in the '80s, and I still love them, and I still listen to them. I actually go onto YouTube and look for old concert footage of them, and they played the Capitol.
They're so
Theater.
Tight.
What? They're unbelievably
so tight.
Yeah, they're unbelievable. They are just. It's just amazing to listen to.
I became a bass player at a good time because music was getting a little bit simpler, and you could easily pick out and better recorded. So it was really easy to pick out different parts of the song, the different instruments, and we were going from vinyl to cassette. So when that happened, bass lines became extremely loud in mixes. So late 70s, early 80s, you listen to music recorded and released in that time, the bass is like right in your face. If you listen to the Cars or you listen to the Police, and all the new wave stuff where you really, they kind of went back to kind of 3-person bands where there was a bass player, guitar player, and a drummer. And it wasn't so much about guitar solos, it was more about getting grooves and rhythms. The guy from Queen, John Deacon, fabulous guy. I learned a lot from him. So it was a good time to kind of to play bass. And the
And
truth of the matter is, back when I was
yeah,
in Tohu Vavohu, and I was playing guitar with the guys, and I've always had a privilege to play with really good guitar players. And Moshe Kaufman was great. When you listen to him, you could be listening to Led Zeppelin, and you wouldn't know the difference. He was that good, but it made me realize that I was the worst guitar player in the band, and what they needed was a good bass player. So then I flipped into bass, and that's kind of where that happened. So
and somehow that's how I connected with you as a bass player in your incarnation, in your in your reinventing yourself from an acoustic or an electric guitar player to a bass player.
right.
And it was great. And I always tell people the best rock bass player that I ever played with in the Jewish music world was you. I mean, you and I play keyboard as if you're playing bass. So my left hand, when I don't have a bass player, I'm basically imitating you or trying to. And so
Yeah, those first couple of gigs, whenever we would play any set of gigs, would be me trying to get you to stop playing bass.
right. Oh, you mean
It's
all
like,
right.
stop playing.
Yeah,
I pick
because
up your
you're
hand off
not
the
used to
keyboard.
it. Because
Yeah,
I was never used to
right.
playing
You
on
had
the
to get
bass
back
player.
in. You had to get back into the groove of it. So yeah.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something very, very interesting, Mark. When I did the No Limits album and the Daniel in Babylon double CD, I played with a bass player named David Keys. He's not alive anymore. He passed away a couple of years ago. And
Sorry.
he walks into the studio and I say to him, "What should I do with my left hand?" And he said to me, "You just play, I'll work around you." He was the best studio bass player I ever played with. He was so smooth. He knew exactly what to
Hmm.
play. He knew exactly what register to go to. He knew, I mean, and I just, it was a machaya, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and that was Dave Keys. That was his name. And I even used him on a gig, a couple of gigs, and it was the same thing. He didn't know any of the songs because I never tell anybody the songs because that would mean, rehearsal. And we both know that Shlock Rock does not rehearse.
No, God forbid. God
Well,
forbid. Yeah.
that's not really true. It's not really
We
true.
we
I
had
do.
we did once or twice.
Yeah,
Um,
we did. Yeah, we did rehearse once or twice. And as Kesher, I would rehearse all the time. We rehearsed all the time as Kesher.
Kesher was a different animal altogether. Kesher was a very specific. You play these songs, you play them this way, you play them like the album, which I enjoyed actually.
Schlock Rock was a very I would categorize Shlock Rock into the high energy, you never know what's going to happen type of a band. We just played and we gave a lot of energy and people went crazy. It brings me back to when we went to Israel. You remember when we played in Israel? We went. Of course you do,
Which
because it
one?
was what a
Yeah,
fantastic trip that was. And we were filming
yeah.
Shlock Rock Videos Volume 1. And you remember we were playing Pardes Chana. Pardes Chana, which is a town near Caesarea. We were supposed to play the Matnas, which is the JCC. It burnt down. So instead, they took us to Pardes Chana, where there were only girl army. They were in the middle of their training. They walked into the room, and we just started playing rock and roll, right? And they
It was
went
the best
crazy.
gig of my life.
And we were right. And we were playing. We played for 2 hours straight. We never stopped. We never
Yeah.
stopped. It was just.
Yeah, it was yet another way that my life parallels Spinal Tap, because they have that part with, why are we going to an Air Force base? Because the original big gig fell through. It was that kind
Right. That's right. The original big gig fell through,
of
and
right.
but then we actually had two big gigs. One of them was in Jerusalem, where we played in the Gerard Bahar Center, and that was to a packed audience. And then we played to another packed audience, and that was all, girls in their army training. So it was an all girls show, you know,
Except for
um,
us, who were the show. But
right, except for the six guys on the band, and the video guy, and J.J. Greenberg, Oliver Shalom, who was at the show too.
mhm.
And it was really, that was just a fantastic, fantastic experience. Um, you know. Anyway, so all right, so let's talk a little bit about Kabbalah. We've already done 20 minutes, believe it or not. I can't get over
Time
this.
flies. Yeah.
But let's talk about Kabbalah. So specifically, Kabbalah 1, which I actually played one song on, a piano player on that song with an eagle, something with an eagle.
It was the struggle.
The
It's called the
struggle.
struggle. Yeah.
Right. And I played piano. I remember being in the studio. It was fun. And then came Kabbalah 2. And Kabbalah 2, you discovered a great piano keyboard player named Brian Gelfand. Brian today is a choir director at a lot of different schools, but he's one of the greatest. I mean, that he was as close to Jules Holland, and if you were trying to recreate
Closer.
Squeeze, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a very hot burning talent. He's very intense. And I also discovered him in a lounge playing to women. So it's one of it's kind of.
Did you really? That's funny.
Yes.
That's really something.
I'm sure he doesn't want me to say that on a stream, but
whatever.
Whatever.
What's really interesting about that is, and also Mo Shapiro. Mo Shapiro joined the band after Yonah Lloyd. Yonah Lloyd will be on probably during Hanukkah. We're going to have him as a special guest. And Mo Shapiro replaced Yonah, although there was Penny Rosenthal in between. And who else played guitar in between? I think that was it. I think it was Yonah, Penny Rosenthal to Mo Shapiro.
Yeah.
Right? Sounds like a law firm. And that's funny because Yonah's a lawyer, Mo's a lawyer, and Penny is not. Penny's a rabbi.
Yeah.
But in terms of bass players, you got married and you left after you finished your medical school, you moved to Milwaukee. Tell the
Still
people
here.
out there. Tell the people out there what it's like being in a Jewish community like Milwaukee.
Well, I think when I first came here, I kind of gave the analogy. It's like you're not just another annoying person in line at the bakery, So when you move from a place like New York, which is just brimming at the seams with Jews, and everybody around you is kind of competing for the same space, basically, and nobody says hello to anybody, nobody cares who you are. And I came here to a kind of a smaller town where every person here kind of counts. If they need a minion, they need a minion. The people know everybody. You patronize each other's businesses, and you say hello and you get Shabbos to people when you pass them on the street when you're walking. It's a different mentality. It was a smaller, kind of a smaller town, more personal kind of feeling, more connectiveness.
The thought that just popped into my head was 1995. We're on the road. I come to you for Shabbos, and we're going to be playing a concert on Saturday night in November 1995, I think it was. And mincha time, we go to shul, and we find out that Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated. And our concert went from being a concert to a prayer service. We never ended up playing. The next day, I think we played in Chicago. The gig stayed, but the first gig, the Milwaukee gig, it was too raw. The assassination of Yitzhak Rabin was too raw, and that was. I remember we were in this theater in Milwaukee, and instead of it being a concert, it was everybody saying
like a vigil,
Tehillim, everybody saying Psalms. That was
but
one
you
of
came
our
back.
What?
You came back a few months later, so. Later in the winter, we
did
rescheduled the show,
reschedule.
which for us, in Milwaukee, that was like a huge deal because we didn't get like Jewish music concerts here. We still don't really, but it wasn't a thing where every holiday, every Chol HaMoed, every Hanukkah, you'd go and see 5 or 6 shows. It doesn't happen here. Even in Chicago, it doesn't happen very much. But people that may not understand, like I moved here in 1991. For residency, and I stayed here afterwards because I like it here. My family's here, but we've been playing together continuously pretty much since then. So even right off the bat, I mean, you do a bunch of shows in the Midwest, I was there. If you did a show in Ohio, I think I played in Columbus or something like that, and you flew me in for that. And I think we did shows in I did a show in Georgia with you, in
Yes.
Atlanta, and I
St.
flew after
Louis, I
that.
think St. Louis too.
St. Louis, I did a show. So there were, and of course, every time we were in Chicago, I'd come down and play with
Right.
you. So we
Right.
we played together over the years. And not only that, but we recorded together even very recently, which people maybe don't understand.
Right.
But
And
thanks to
I was
the
about to
magic of
talk
the
to you about that.
internet, yeah.
You played
So
bass
let me
on
let
one
me
of
just
our. Yeah. Tell everybody.
well, I just want to say why recording is a big deal for me because when I was a kid, I always liked to create things. So when I was a kid, I'd build with blocks, and then I got a little older, I built with Lego, and then I started building with models, and then I started to learn how to draw, and so I would make comic books, and I made like 100 issues of a comic book in grade school. And then when I discovered that you could play music with other people, the only thing that I wanted to do was to make an album,
Right.
because music by its nature is kind of ephemeral, right? You hear it and then it's gone, and then it only exists in your memory, right? It's not like a painting that you can look at forever, unless you record it, right? You record it, and then you've made something that lasts forever. It's a little bit of immortality, right? So when I joined Tohu Vavohu, the first thing I wanted to do was get in a studio and record. When I was with Kabbalah, I recorded. When I was with you, I didn't record with Kesher, although you brought
No.
me into the studio to watch the basic tracks for Kesher 2. And that was like a really mind-altering experience for me to watch. It was like Yaron Gershovsky and Rick Cutler
Harry
and Steve
Max,
Bill
Rick
and all those
Cutler,
guys,
and
Harry Max.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
the guy would say, go, and a song came out.
It
Perfect.
really, I
So
want you to know, I feel the same way. People always say to me, "What do you enjoy more, performing or recording?" And it's not even close. For me, everything is about writing the song and going into the studio and turning nothing into something.
right, and that's why you and I always got along so well, because we both understood that's really what we wanted to be doing, was making those records. And so all those albums that we did in the 80s, when we were going into studios and you were spending obscene amounts of money, that was but that was it. I mean, that was like, wow, this is what I want to do. And I'm still proud of all the work that we did, even KGB, even the little things that we did at Mick's
Right.
place in his basement. I think we did, I just loved the way we all came together and made that sound. So even in the most recent years, so now, we're spread all over the world, and now we're really alone. But the truth of the matter is we can still make music. So we've played a couple of albums where in my home studio here in Milwaukee, I record bass lines for you, and I email them to you,
That's right.
and they end up
What
on the
was the
album.
Yes, what was the last album that you played on? Do you
We did
remember?
Shira Yete Ra.
Oh, that's the last Hebrew one that I just did. You played
It
bass
just
on
came
it.
out, so I
Yeah.
play bass on it, and I gotta say, I think that's the best bass playing I've ever done on an album. I finally figured it out after
Well,
35 years how to play. But
no, but
but
you get better and better. You get better and better. I people always say to me, "Do you what's your favorite song?" And I say, "You don't have a favorite song, but I think that the newer material that comes out is your most favorite stuff because you're getting I even though people don't want to hear it, they only want to hear
they only want
everything
to hear the old stuff.
up to
Minion Man, right?
1995. Everything up to
Right.
1995. I could make a living, well, I do, just going from 1986 to 1995. Except and that's what, by the way, when I went to see Squeeze in concert at the Capitol Theater, they would play one old song and then something new songs, and nobody knew their new songs.
Nobody cared
And they
about
didn't
the
want to
new
hear it
stuff,
either.
and it's
And
always
the
like
same
that.
and the same thing happened when I went to see Steve Miller at the Beacon Theater. They started booing him. They said, "Play the greatest hits. We just want to hear the greatest hits." And then he
People just
did.
like what they know. Yeah.
And the second act was all greatest hits. That's what he did.
Which
But the
is why
first
Shlock
act,
Rock is such a great idea, by the way, because you're basically getting in there and playing stuff that people know. You get
right?
there and you play Johnny B. Good, or you play old time rock and roll, or you play Barbara Ann, and they love it.
It's
So
unbelievable. Now, believe it or not, we're already at 30 minutes. I've done no paperwork. What does that mean? It means I have to tell the fans and the friends who are out here watching that everything that you're hearing and watching, this is show number 57, is brought to you. It's sponsored by the Four Corners Project.org. That's the number 4, cornersproject.org. And we are right now in day 5 of our 40-day end-of-year campaign where we are raising money for the budget for 2021. What do we have on that agenda? 2 albums, 10 music videos, a new webisode, and of course, 3 episodes a week of Lenny Solomon Live. And what we need you guys to do is to go to the website, www.fourcornersproject.org, or if you're a Facebook friend, you're going to get a personal blurb from me, a personal text from me as I'm going through my 4,900 friends on one account and then the 4,900 friends on another account. And it will give you a link that you could just go and make a donation for the year. It's really, really important because, and it's tax deductible, by the way. It's tax deductible because it's very, very important that first thing is the Jewish music continues, Jewish rock and roll. And what does it do? It's informal Jewish education. It makes people feel good about who they are, their heritage. You know, I don't want to make it sound boring. It's not boring by any stretch. But I got to tell everybody
I just want to say one thing.
Yes.
I just want to say one thing about you, Lenny, is that I traveled with you literally around the world, and I went to lots of different Jewish communities and all over the country, and everywhere I went, you had your best friend. Everybody was there. People loved you, but more importantly, you loved all those people, and I know that it's not an act. I know that it's real, it's sincere, and through that love that you show to your fans and your friends, they become more interested in their heritage and their Judaism and understanding where they come from, where they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to act. And you continue to do this for 30, 40 years. You've been doing this now. And I want you to continue to be strong about this. You are, in my opinion, the most important Jewish educator and inspiring figure that I have ever known. And I've known quite a few, but you're the real thing. And you're the genuine article, and you've brought so many people back to their roots and their heritage, and I know personally for me, you've gone out of your way to help me with my family, and my relationships with my my parents and other things, and I so appreciate. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I really appreciate everything that you've done for me over the years, and you should have nothing but health and happiness and financial security, and keep doing what you're doing.
Financial security. Thank you very much, Mark. That was I didn't know, but the most important thing is we just got to have simcha, and we got to keep going. It's a very, very difficult time, as I always tell the people on the audience this COVID thing. It's not like, you always just say that in Milwaukee, you go to concerts. There ain't no concerts in New York right now either. And there's no concerts in Israel. All there is virtual, live web stream and webcam. And that's what we're doing. And you gotta do the best that you can. And I just want to thank you for coming on. It's been great having you. For those of you interested in hearing.
Before Yonah.
That's right. For those of you interested in hearing Mark's music, tell them how they can do that.
So you can always go to Moshe Skyer, MOSHESKIER.com, and that'll kind of get you places. But if you're on an iPhone or if you're on an Android, you go to the music apps and you just search for Moshe Skyer, MOSHESKIER. I have a couple of albums under my own name from more recent stuff, and the Kabbalah's there, so you should be able to find it.
That's awesome.
And it's on YouTube, so.
That's awesome. All right, everybody out there, we hope you've had a great show. We're going to be back on Monday night with show number 58, and as we head towards Hanukkah, we are 2 weeks from Hanukkah as of tonight, 14 days from Hanukkah, and hopefully things will be good, and we'll keep on schlocking, and we'll keep on doing the things that we have to do. You feel the emunah. All right, everybody.
Right.
Thanks for coming.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And have a great Shabbat, great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you soon.